Hello and welcome to Beyond Focus TV. My name is Angie Daniel and I am the hostess. Tonight we're going to talk about TPS. What is TPS and who's benefiting from it? We have with us a lawyer, Mr. Matthew Blaisdell, that I'm going to introduce to you right after this. What I want you to do for me is to get a pen and a piece of paper, just in case you know if anyone from a Haitian citizen that can benefit from this. I need you to jot down all the information that I'm going to give you. So I'm going to speak a little bit slower just so you have a chance to get your pen and paper. The TPS. What is TPS? It's a temporary protected status that is issuing to all the citizens of a country that's been affected one way or the other. For example, Haiti was hit by the earthquake on January 12, 2010, as we know it. All the Haitians that were already in America were benefiting from having the status change where they would not be deported back to Haiti. They would be granted rights to work, rights to not have DHS look for them, rights to temporarily having travel documents. Now, this new, on May 19th of 2011, a new rights were open to other Haitian descendants. We're going to take a short break. When we'll be right back with Mr. Matthew Blaisdell. Welcome back to Beyond Focus TV. Tonight's topic is the TPS granted to the Haitian citizens that are already in America. Welcome, Mr. Matthew Blaisdell, Esquire.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome for coming here. And thank you for coming to enlighten the idea of what I needed to speak to the community about. Can you just tell me in your own voice, because I know I kind of give out an idea of what TPS stands for, but can you just tell me on your legal status what the TPS stands for?
Yeah, TPS is conceptually one of the easier, more rational benefits under U.S. immigration law. It's essentially a benefit that the Department of State, the Attorney General, can grant to nationals of a certain country that's undergoing, say, armed conflict or some kind of environmental disaster that's so bad that we can't deport people back to that country. It's a discretionary decision, and to be honest, I mean, Haiti probably qualified after the hurricanes last year, but they're very reluctant to grant it. Only a few countries have it, and at this point, after the earthquake, it became nearly impossible not to. We just couldn't, in good conscience, deport all these Haitians back to Haiti.
Okay. So I want people to understand the idea that, first of all, that it's not only Haiti that have been granted TPS. Other countries have also been granted TPS on armed force fighting and on earthquake situations. But what I am really interested in is the idea, I know like there was the past, like where we granted the Haitians legal status to stay. But can you tell me the reason why right now that we need to talk about it and let people know what is out there?
Yeah, TPS, certain countries have been on TPS for a long time. Technically, it's only a temporary protected status, which is why it only lasts for 6 months to 18 months. They just reached the 18-month deadline for the initial registration, and they renewed it for another 18 months, and it just goes on like that until they terminate it. But for, say, El Salvador, Honduras have had it for a very long time. Sudan, Somalia, and Liberia has recently ended. But as you know, we see one of the reasons they're reluctant to grant it is because it's so hard to remove those people once it's over. So they have a kind of limbo state for some of those called deferred enforced departure.
Oh, wait, let me ask you, because one of my questions for you, and conversations I've been having with my friends, once they stop giving out the TPS, once they stop renewing it, does that mean that you have to legally return to your country of origin?
Unless in the interim, you gain some other kind of status, or there's some other kind of special legislation to enable you to apply for another kind of immigration status. But yeah, if you've been out of status the whole time, except for TPS, once that TPS ends, you've got to do something else. There might be another form of humanitarian relief available if you've been here a long time. Say if TPS goes on for a certain number of years, you've been here maybe 10 years, you married a U.S. citizen or something like that, you may have another form of relief available. But generally speaking, yeah, once TPS is over, you need something else.
Okay. I want people to understand TPS is not a green card.
Not at all.
It's not a green card.
And it doesn't even fix your past violations. So those are still hanging over your head the whole time that TPS is ongoing.
Okay. One, TPS is not a green card. It just gives you the right to stay here
and work.
So
that's it.
Are you allowed to buy property?
You can do anything, yeah. And then even if you're an undocumented alien, quite often you're able to do a lot of these things. Buy property in New York State.
Okay.
You can get certain health benefits.
Okay.
If you get a social, you can get lots of tax benefits. There's a
Okay.
number of different benefits to TPS.
To TPS, okay. For the Haitian community itself, starting on May 19th of 2011, how do you think this whole idea of the TPS is going to change that community?
Well, this designation of TPS is very unique in that it lets people who came here after the initial registration sign up for the first time. Usually when they do it, if you miss that very first date, that's it, you can't get in. Because of the earthquake, we had to let so many people in the day after January 12th that they needed something else to cover all those other people. So this time you can renew it or sign up for the first time, and this might be the only chance they get to do it, because my personal feeling is that they won't be so generous the next time around. So if you've been here and you haven't signed up for TPS yet, do it this time.
Okay. I have two questions for you before we take a break. The first one is that I understand with the TPS, there are three different group of people that are qualified for it. I know the individual. Can you explain those three different ones for me?
You have to be a national of Haiti, which means citizen, or you meet their other national requirements. So if you're born in another country but your parents were Haitian, you still probably qualify.
Okay.
Or if you were stateless, which actually happens to a lot of people in the Caribbean. There's no country in which they have citizenship. But if you were residing in Haiti, that's the last country you were in, you also qualify.
Okay.
And then as long as you're here during the certain times and you meet the other registration requirements, you can apply.
Okay. And the second thing is, I know that there's a deadline. There's a time for each group of people to apply. So let's talk about the dates before we take a break.
Sure. If you are applying for TPS for the very first time, you have until November 15th.
And people need to understand that.
Yes.
It's not August 22nd. It's not July 22nd. It's November 15th.
There's a lot of different dates
Exactly.
involved.
I want people to understand that. Individual applying for the first time is November 15th. Because, there's a whole lot going on that people are so either very happy and excited and they're mixing up everything that they're receiving. So applying for the first time, November 15th.
Yes.
If you were applying?
If you're renewing, it's August 22nd.
August 22nd.
The reason is it's a lot easier to renew. You need a lot fewer documents. You've already submitted them. You just renew it.
Okay. And the last one is if you're pending, which means you already applied and then it's just pending.
Yeah, that's a very good question. If you had applied for the initial registration and a decision has not been made, you will be considered by the government to be renewing. That's a decision that they just made. So you hit the August 22nd deadline, but you don't have to resubmit everything you did the first time.
So you don't have to resubmit anything?
You have to submit a few that you like, the fact that you applied, your receipts from USCIS, and that's basically it. Proof if you had a work permit issued during that time, evidence of that. But that's it. You don't have to get all the nationality documents, the physical presence documents, all that other stuff. You already submitted it once.
Okay, so we're going to take a break. When we come back, I have two things that I don't want to forget them, so I'm going to ask you first. The fees for all of these papers, and also, see, I already forgot my second question.
There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, there's a whole lot to talk about. And I want people to understand that we need to do this. The Haitian community needs it. People need to be aware of what the TPS stands for. So we'll take a break. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Beyond Focus TV. Of course, my name is Angie Daniel. I am the hostess, but we are here with lawyer Mr. Matthew Blaisdell. Before we took a break, we were talking about the whole idea of TPS. There's a lot of information that people are in need of, and we were trying our best to give as much as possible. Before the break, I told you I wanted to ask you about the fees, and then I remembered my question, what it was for the second question. It was the form that people needed to fill out the application and papers that they needed to do this with. So can you tell me
There's three different forms that are relevant here. There's the form for TPS. That's called Form 821.
I-821.
Yes, exactly. The one for the work permit is 765.
I-765.
And you need to file that even if you're not applying for the work permit. You still need to file it.
Okay.
And then the last one is the fee waiver form.
Wait, let me let people understand this. Even if you have a minor that's been here after January 12th and you're filing for TPS for them, I know that, anyone under 14 is not allowed to work in America, but they need to have this paper filed.
Yes.
Okay? So we got that covered. All right. The waiver form.
Yes, and the waiver is form
What is the waiver
I-912.
form, by the way?
What is it? Because so many people, we know that they're in a desperate situation, and you know, given the economy and the state that they're in when they come here, obviously many of them are not working. They can't afford the filing fees, which can be substantial. It's $50 for the TPS application, $85 for the fingerprinting, and the big one is the work permit. That's $380.
Okay.
So there's a fee waiver form to waive some or all of those fees if you can demonstrate your inability to pay for them.
Okay, so for you to be eligible, for you to have the waiver fee, you have to show them what? Like,
If you receive a federal benefit like Social Security, disability, food stamps, whatever, I mean that's proof of it right there. That says you know you're in poverty. Also, if you can demonstrate, if you can submit like your pay stubs that show you make below a certain amount, bills and expenses that'll show that you know you might make a certain amount of money, but your expenses are so high that, you know, it's kind of like when you're doing your taxes, or if you've got a certain number of kids to feed.
okay.
Even statements from friends, whatever you can cobble together, they're being pretty generous in considering this information.
Okay. So we've talked about the fees, of course. So the fee, it could be, if you...
Well, there's different kinds of fees for different kinds of people and different kinds of
So
combinations.
can you explain that to me?
Yeah, and I have
Because
to,
we talk about the waiver fee.
yeah.
But I don't mind if you're reading off your notes, because I think it's really important for the community to understand, and not only understand, but hear it. So you can read from your notes.
Yeah, I want to be very specific. So when people go to registration forms, they bring the proper amount of money. The number one reason applications are denied is the wrong fees are filed. So let's be very specific about this.
Can you say it in English, and I'll repeat it in Creole so people will understand?
Yes, okay. The first rates, if you're applying for TPS for the very first time, if you're between the ages of 14 and $65 and you want a work permit, the total fees are $515.
Wait, if you be between the age of 14 and $65?
No,
I just wanted to bring that up.
yeah, no.
14 and 65, I got it.
Yeah, yeah.
The fees are how much?
Your total fees will be $515, but you'll want to bring separate checks and money orders because, like I said, one application is this amount, one application is this amount. If you submit the fees all together and one of the applications is denied, the
So
whole thing will
you'll
be denied.
okay.
So file them separately in case one's denied, you still have the others.
So the work permit is
The work permit by itself is $380.
$380. So you should make a check for that by itself.
Personal check or money order.
Personal check of money. The second fee is
The second fee for the TPS is $50.
$50. So that should be a check by itself.
And for the fingerprinting, that's $85.
$85.
Yeah.
So that should be. So you should have 3 different checks. One for $50, one for $380,
80.
and the other one for $85.
Correct.
With you. Checks and money order.
Yep.
All right.
And if you're between the ages of 14 and 65,
65.
and you're not applying for the work permit, in that case it's the 50 and the 85, total $135.
Okay. So if you, I thought you said that they should apply.
They
but-
should. They
Okay.
should, and I can get into the reasons for that after we go over all the fees.
Okay. So it should be how much?
$135 if you're
100.
in that age group and you're not applying for
Yeah,
work
because
permit.
all you're doing is the fingerprinting and the
the
TPS
TPS.
application. Okay.
If you're under the age of 14, it's $50 regardless.
Okay.
Regardless.
For everything.
Everything.
Oh, so that's cool.
And if you're over 65, it's $135.
Okay. So that's good.
So, and then if you're renewing, we have a whole nother set. If you're over 14 and you want the work permit, it's $465.
For the work permit?
Yep, because you have to pay the $380 each time.
Okay.
They're just waiving the fingerprinting.
Whoa.
So $465. If you're over 14 and you don't want it, then you only need to pay for the fingerprinting fee, which is $85.
$85.
If you're under 14 and you want the work permit, $380.
Okay.
Under 14, you don't want the work permit and you're renewing,
No
nothing.
fees. Okay. So that's good.
Yep.
So explain to me the reason why they should apply for the work permit, even though if they don't want it.
Well, number one, it's going to make the lives of you and your employer much easier and less stressful if you have the card. because as we know, instead of cracking down on undocumented immigrants, the administration's now cracking down on employers.
Yes.
So they're going after it. Just have your work permit. It just makes your life easier. Also, it's the only form of government-issued ID you're going to get. Otherwise, if you get TPS, you'll just get a piece of paper, a receipt that says it's approved. But if you get the work permit, you've got a card with your name, your fingerprinting, all your information.
And your picture on it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Lastly, this is how you get your Social Security number, which will enable you to get a lot more benefits, especially certain people who are entitled to the Earned Income Credit, which could be a windfall for Haitians.
Yes.
That can pay for itself right there.
Yeah. Okay. So a quick question for you. You were saying that that's the only form of ID that they're getting.
It's the only card you're going to get, yeah.
The only card. Would they be eligible to apply for driver's license?
New York's usually pretty, you can get, I think, a state, because you have immigration ID, or immigration status, so you should be able to get a state ID.
No, wait, but if they're only applying for the TPS, would they be able to?
If you're applying for TPS, again.
But you don't want the work permit. Because it's kind of like popping into my head. So if they're not going to be issued anything else.
If your application's pending, you're in this, and this is whether it's any immigration benefit, you're in this kind of limbo status where you're not out of status, but you're allowed to stay.
Okay.
You're not it's kind of weird. So it depends on what benefit exactly you're applying for. You're probably not going to get a driver's license if you've just got an application pending.
Okay. We're going to take a short break. I have a couple more questions for you. I am hoping that everyone is like writing things down because the community really, really, really needs this. So we'll be right back. I have a question for you. Welcome back to our session on the TPS with Mr. Matthew Blaisdell. Before we took a break, we were talking about all the fees, the papers that were needed. What are the documentation that people need to provide?
Sure. The general requirements, again, are to prove that you're a national or stateless person from Haiti, that you've been more or less living here since January 12th, 2011, this time the one-year anniversary of the earthquake.
Okay.
And if you wait until after July 23rd, the date the TPS renewal takes place, you'll have to also prove that you've been physically present here since that time. So I'll go over the requirements for all of those real quick.
Please.
Regarding nationality, if you have a passport, a birth certificate, or some other national identity document, that's it. That's right there.
Okay.
Because the government knows that the National Archives are in such bad shape, a lot of people lost documents running, they will accept other forms, and the more you have, the better, such as baptismal certificates a lot of people use, sworn affidavits from friends saying that they've known you for this length of time, this is how they know you, et cetera, et cetera. School records, church records, whatever you can get your hands on. Again, they're being generous. They'll take a look at it, and the more you can get, the better.
Okay.
So that's regarding identity. To prove that you've been living here, just, leases, receipts, again.
But if you don't have a job, how are you going to lease a home?
Well, I mean, like
receipts,
anything.
yes.
Receipts, if you've been to the hospital records, school records, again, affidavits from friends, bills, utility bills, anything with your name and address on it, or just even somebody just saying that, this is you, I can vouch for this person. And again, the more you pile on, the better. So just think creatively and consult with one of the nonprofits, and they'll give you a whole list of stuff you can get.
Okay. Before, because, it's coming to the ending of our show, I want to kind of like bring up the ideas of what people need to understand, that the TPS is not a green card.
No.
Okay? That for you to be eligible for the TPS, because we haven't talked about that, there's a legal part to it. And then also what I want you to bring forth, please, is the idea that people think with the TPS you can travel. Explain that to me.
Yes. With your work permit, it now serves as a dual travel document. You are allowed to leave the United States. You have to get advance permission. But if you've done certain immigration or criminal violations beforehand, they might not let you back in. It doesn't make sense. They might let you go, but they might not let you come back in.
So people need to understand that.
Or, yes, and if they let you back in, it might trigger certain other immigration problems, like you're re-entering after you've done something. It triggers like a 3-year bar or a 10-year bar. So if you become eligible for a green card while you're on TPS, this whole thing, this fact that you left and came back, it just could create a whole host of problems. So carefully consult an immigration attorney, experienced immigration attorney, if you've had any immigration issues, being out of status, illegal entries, or any criminal activity, any run-ins with the police. It could, leaving and coming back could trigger a whole host of problems for you down the road.
I wanted to ask one question. The illegal entry, are they eligible for TPS? Because
yes.
I think I kind of, they are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I mean, almost, otherwise not many people would qualify.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I know it's great. It's a good idea to help people. What are the pros and cons about the TPS status?
Well, the pros are many. Again, it lets you work here. It gives you lawful status. So again, if you become eligible for something else down the line, you won't have this whole period of unlawful status that might otherwise disqualify you. Okay. It titles you to certain benefits once you get the Social Security number, et cetera, et cetera. The only con is that if you apply and you're not eligible, for instance, if you've had a criminal conviction, it gets complicated, and your application is denied, that then puts you on the radar.
Okay.
And the only people who are getting deported to Haiti are the guys who have committed certain crimes. So if you've had any kind of criminal behavior, be very careful before you apply. Okay. If you might not be eligible, be careful because, again, a denial.
It brings a light onto you.
And right now they're not coming after people whose applications were denied and who have not committed crimes. But still,
when Haiti gets better,
you
might be the first person on the list to
So just consult somebody carefully before you send it in.
Okay. Is there any other information that you would like to bring forth?
Again, my primary concerns are that people with these convictions or violations, be careful. If you have a work card, if you get your work card, that does not mean that you got TPS. So then don't move or do anything else. You might miss notices and your TPS might get denied.
So you might get worker's permit.
It's usually approved first.
Okay.
To get people working while they're considering your TPS application. That's a big thing.
How long does that take for you to get the TPS?
Right now, after you file, it takes about a month for them to say, okay, we've received it, it's being processed. About 90 days after that.
So that's 3 months after. So that's already 4 months.
Yeah. And again, it doesn't even take place until July 23rd. Around that time, you'll probably get your fingerprint notice. Okay. And shortly after that, your work permit. And then sometime after that, it depends on how overwhelmed they are. They'll make a decision on the TPS application. Okay.
We're going to take a small break because when we come back, I want you to kind of give me ideas of where, if people needed help, they can go to.
Absolutely.
So we're going to take a small break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the ending of our most intriguing question-asking information session that we've ever had. I am hoping that everyone watching will have a pen and a piece of paper because right now we are about to give you lots of information. Like if you have a friend, anyone that you know with Haitian descent that would benefit from this, or anywhere you can pass this information on, please write it down. That would be your good thing to do today. Before we get the addresses and name, can you just briefly talk about what we're trying to petition on?
Yes, there's a number of groups, there's a lot of editorials being run right now asking the Department of State to advance the applications of Haitians living abroad who have approved visa petitions to come to the United States to their relatives or employers, but they can't do it for many numbers of years because of the wait. Once you get a visa petition approved, that only guarantees your place in the line to get into the United States. It can take 3 to 23 years, depending on what the basis is and what country you're from. Right now, I think there's about 55,000, give or take, Haitians who have approved visa petitions who are just waiting for their turn in line to come. And a lot of advocates are saying, well, this doesn't make a lot of sense to keep them in Haiti right now, whereas they could come to the States, start sending their remittances back to the country, get working. It makes a lot of sense from a lot of different angles. So that's one thing they're pushing the Department of State to seriously consider.
And how can we help with that?
You can write to your local legislator. You can look at some editorials. One group pushing this pretty hard is the Institute for Justice and Democracy in Haiti. Okay. They're at HaitiJustice.org.
HaitiJustice.org.
Or IJDH.org. It's the same site.
Okay.
And they do so many things on Haiti-related issues, but you should be able to find the resources to form letters and stuff to contact your senators.
Okay. And last thing, can you please provide the addresses and telephone numbers and people that if anyone would need help filing out papers that they can go to? Yeah,
there's a lot of people who need help. Yesterday we did a drive where we had, I think, served 400 people before noon, and we had to cut it off at that point because of fire regulations. So there's so many people out there who still need assistance.
Okay.
The organizations that are still doing regular registration workshops, and again I'm going to read this because I want to be specific. If you go to the New York Immigration Coalition's website, they had the most thorough site last time around of nonprofits and private practitioners.
Okay.
I think for the registration, they're going to focus on nonprofits, but that website is www.thenyyic.org.
Okay, can you repeat that slower so people will just, while you're writing down, because I want people to write down.
Yeah. www.thenyyic.org.
Okay.
Also, Catholic Charities has always been very good about this. They have a hotline where they have, I think, several Creole speakers right now, and they'll let you know when to come in. For instance, the Manhattan office always has open workshops on Tuesday morning where you can just walk in. They usually charge a sliding scale, which they'll waive in some instances.
Okay.
Their hotline is 888-744-7900.
Okay.
Or you can just look up Catholic Charities, Archdiocese, New York.
Okay.
And there's a few specific workshops that'll be done once a week or twice a month, and those would be at the Haitian Immigration Legal Assistance Project and the Haitian Centers Council on 123 Linden Boulevard.
Okay.
I believe they're doing that every Monday from 10 to 3. Also, at the same address is Councilmember Matthew Eugene, I believe on June 17th and 24th.
Yes.
From 10 to 2, he's working with Legal Aid to do the same thing.
Okay. I know that we're running short on time, so if anyone needs more information on this TPS, they can reach us at beyondfocustv.com, or they can call us at 917-873-3996 for any more information. And I want to thank you, Mr. Matthew Blaisdell, for all the information that you have given us. And I'm hoping that the community have learned a whole lot from this. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a good night.